Hello friends, welcome to day 3 of the 12 Days of Christmas series. In this video, we are going to combine a lot of my favorite techniques into one tumbler. So starting out, I've got my 60 grit sanding pad here, and I'm going to sand down my 32 ounce plump tumbler just to prep it and get it ready for all of the fun design work we're going to do on it. Once I'm done sanding, I'm going to spray it down with some rubbing alcohol, give it a good wipe down, and then we'll be ready to get into our designing. We're going to do a top-bottom split here, and on the top part, I'm going to use this cute little clear decal. This is another one of those coquette frames, like the one I used in the first video of this series. So it comes from the same file pack. I printed it out on the same clear printable vinyl, and I think I made it maybe like 3 or 3.5 inches tall, and I'm going to use this as a guide for where I'm going to split my cup in half. We're going to do another decal on this that I'm going to size and worry about later. I'm just using that as kind of an estimate for where to start the bottom part of the design. For this bottom portion of the design, we're going to do a peekaboo kind of like checkerboard design. Now we're going to do this entire checkerboard, but we're not going to see it in the end. So I don't want you guys to spend too much time trying to get this completely perfect. The reason I'm doing this checkerboard deal in the first place is because we're going to put a bunch of little decals on the tumbler, and I want each of those decals to be one solid glitter color, and I want to have them very consistently around the tumbler. So if you prefer, you could probably just do like little tiny sections of glitter and not have to do all this taping and all of that stuff. But I wanted this to be very exact, if that makes sense. Another way that you could do this that I literally just thought of right now as I'm doing this voiceover is you could just cut out all of these different squares and sections with colored vinyl, and then you could just lay the vinyl out in the checkerboard pattern that you wanted to do, and then you don't have to do any taping or painting or anything. That would probably actually be a whole lot easier, and I'm wishing I thought of it earlier. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do it the hard way. So I'm taping off the bottom of my tumbler the same way I would if I were doing a true checkerboard design. So I'm going to tape around my cup horizontally, alternating stripes. So I'll have one taped, one open stainless, one taped all the way down the cup. And this is going to start the template for our checkerboard. Like I always say when I do a checkerboard design, if you would rather use like stencil vinyl and just cut out a bunch of squares and do your template that way, you can. Or like I mentioned earlier, you can just use like colored vinyl, cut out your squares and lay them out in a checkerboard pattern. Because you're not going to see it, it doesn't need to be perfect. I just want each of my squares to be the right size so that when I go and I place my stencils down, everything fits and we don't have any like partial glitter shapes. I don't really like the look of that, so I wanted everything to be exact. Once I've done my stripes around the tumbler, I'm also going to do the same down the cup, and then I'm going to cut all of the edges of my tape so that everything is a square. And then I'll remove all of the remaining pieces of tape that I need to create the masked off checkerboard pattern. I'm going to do a red and green checkerboard here. So I'm going to start out with my red. It doesn't really matter what color you start with in this case because we're not actually glittering it. We're going to do a cheek glitter method over all of the paint. So you can start with any color you want. If you're going to traditionally glitter your tumbler though, I do recommend starting with your darker color first and working your way into your lightest color. Once I've got my checkerboard painted, I'm going to remove the rest of the tape from the tumbler, and then I'm going to paint this top half of my cup with plain white acrylic paint, and I'm going to do 2 coats of the white paint up top. So I'm going to let it dry about maybe like 20 to 25 minutes in between each coat, and then I'll be ready to move into my epoxy. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a cheat glitter method over this entire tumbler. So I'm going to take Rainbow Brite from Chase Ray Creations and I'm going to mix it into my epoxy. I'm using the Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Artist Cure epoxy here, and you can see I put just about enough glitter to cover the top area of the cup. Now your glitter concentration will depend on like how much coverage you want. I usually try to go for a pretty solid concentration, but not so much glitter that your epoxy is like gritty. Unless I'm using a chunkier cut, that's a different story. But for these like ultra fine glitters, I like to just create like a really nice concentration like you can see there. It's a very delicate balance. So once I've got that all mixed in, I'm just going to place that all over my entire tumbler, including the top half. And this is going to give us a really nice solid glitter finish for the rest of our design work. After I've got this set of glitter on, or this coat layer of glitter on, I'm going to take a little bit of chunky glitter and I'm going to sprinkle that very, very lightly just in the top half of the cup to give that white section a little bit more differentiation, a little bit more dimension. And of course, we're going to do this whole peekaboo on the bottom, so it will end up looking different anyway, but I just wanted to give it a little bit of extra something. You definitely don't have to do that if you don't want to, but as you guys know, I'm a more glitter is always a better idea type of gal, so I'm adding a little bit more. So here's what our cup looks like after that coat of epoxy. And now I'm going to move into the peekaboo section, my favorite. So I'm going to tape off this bottom section of the cup because the top half is just going to be basically left as is. We're not going to really do anything else to the top other than add our decals later. So I'm just going to mask this off and then we're going to move in to all of our stencils. I'm going to use 3 different stencil shapes for this design, but you can do whatever you want. If you want to do a bunch of different ones and lay them out in a fun little pattern, if you want to do all the same stencil, you can. But I'm going to do Christmas trees in the green sections. And then in the red squares, I'm going to alternate between Santa hats and bows. And because our checkerboard squares are just a little bit larger than an inch, I'm going to cut my decals at about an inch in size. I'm being very careful to cut them so that they fit within those squares. So they might be a little bit smaller than an inch based on the shape. Like the Christmas trees are smaller, so I made them a little bigger. But the goal, of course, is to have them fit within those checkerboard squares. That's why we did the whole checkerboard thing in the first place. I have 20 squares in each color, so I'm going to cut out 20 Christmas trees and then 10 bows and 10 Santa hats. I'm using stencil vinyl for my Christmas trees and my bows, and then I ran out of stencil vinyl and had to order more. So for my Santa hats, I'm using a lime green, like Oracal 651 permanent vinyl. But I always recommend using stencil vinyl. I just think it's easier to work with, but if you have removable vinyl, that's fine too. I would just try to not use permanent vinyl if you can. If you have to, it's doable. It just makes the process a little bit more difficult. Once I had all my stencils applied, I took my cup outside and spray painted it with a coat of matte white spray paint. And once that paint is dry, I'm going to go in with my Southern Belle glitter foil adhesive, and we're going to do the same sort of Tack-it method glitter application that I showed you in yesterday's tutorial. Of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to do the Tack-it method. You can just do regular old glitter peekaboo if you want. But I'm going to do the Tack-it because I think it just looks really pretty with this sort of peekaboo design. That's just how I saw it in my head, so that's what I'm doing. Before I do my peekaboo, I am going to mark all of my stencils with a Sharpie. Now, because I'm doing the Tack-it method with a light colored glitter, I don't need to do any hot glue dots or anything like that to help me find the stencils underneath the glitter. These markings will be just enough for me to find the stencils. You probably don't even need to mark them if you're using a light colored glitter, but it just makes it a little bit easier. So once I've got all of those marked up, I'm going to do a nice thin even layer of the Southern Belle glitter foil adhesive, and then I'm going to let it sit and dry for about an hour. Now the finish we're looking for is a mostly dry tacky finish. We don't want the adhesive to be wet because then you won't be able to do the actual Tack-it method. Then you're just using it as a traditional glue, which is fine too if you wanted to do it that way, but then you could just use anything. You don't have to use the special adhesive that you can do the Tack-it method with. You know what I mean? I'm going to use 3 glitters from Chaseray Creations for this Tack-it method. I'm starting out with my chunkiest. This is Iceberg. And honestly, you could just use 1 glitter if you wanted to. I just wanted some full coverage, a little bit of dimension, make it look a little different. So I'm using Iceberg, and then I'm using Lace. And Lace has 2 cuts. So there's a mini chunky kind of cut that I'm using now, and then there's a regular fine cut, and I'm going to use that at the very end. And once I've got all my glitters applied with my gloved hand, I'm just going to basically burnish the glitter down. I'm just going to rub as much of the excess off as I can, and in the end we're going to be left with a very, very soft, subtle sparkle. This is not a traditional glitter look that you'll get with this Tack-it method, but it does give us a little bit of a nice little finish. I also like that with this specific glitter, it kind of tinges a little bit yellow gold-ish on a white background. On a blue or black background, oh my gosh, it looks so different and so beautiful. Anyway, but on a white background, it kind of shifts a little bit yellow pinky-ish, which I thought kind of added to the little retro vintage kind of vibe that we're gonna end up with this design. So after the glitter's all rubbed down, this is what it looks like. And now I'm gonna go right into peeling my decals off. You don't have to wait any certain amount of time. You don't have to do anything. You can go right into peeling your decals and then basically right into your epoxy after that. If you wanted to, you could add a sealer to your glitter before peeling your decals up, but with this glitter, I wasn't really worried about it moving around too much. It's a white iridescent glitter. If it moves, and it's not the end of the world. But you can always seal your glitter before peeling your decals up if you would like to. So as I mentioned, right after peeling up all of these decals, I went into another coat of epoxy. So the cup now is totally smooth and ready for our decals. To start off, I'm going to add a little stripe of vinyl to the middle of our tumbler where our 2 sections meet. I'm using this kind of just gold, soft, shimmery, glittery vinyl. I don't know where this is from. I'm sorry. I'm trying to use all of the vinyl that I've just had sitting around for years in my studio. So I don't really know where a lot of the stuff I've been using lately is from. I'm sure you could find something similar from TECKWRAP or Amazon or wherever. I cut this stripe out at, I think, 0.13 inches in width. and now I can add my decals to the top half of the tumbler. So starting out with that cute little coquette frame that we looked at in the very beginning, I'm going to put that on the top of one side of the tumbler, and then I'm going to come back to it later. So I'm going to put that on, and then on the opposite side, I'm going to do my actual like cutout vinyl decal. This SVG is from Tape Made Modern on Etsy, so I will link it down below for you if you want to use the same one. It's got a little bit of a fun, like retro vintagey kind of twist to it, which really ties in well with the whole vibe of this tumbler design. It also comes as a multicolored decal, so I'm going to cut out these different colors. I did create an offset. The file doesn't come with the offset, so I just made one at 0.05 in width. So I cut the offset out with my dark green vinyl to tie in our green, and then the rest of the colors for the decal tie in with the rest of the colors we have going. So I've got a champagne gold matte metallic vinyl from TECKWRAP, a plain true red just permanent vinyl, and then I've got this really pretty soft pink kind of pastel vinyl. This is also from TECKWRAP. So I cut out each little section of my words, and I'm going to put them onto the offset. So I'll put the offset on the tumbler first, and then I'll go in and apply each different section of the decal. Some people prefer to layer their decals before they put them on their tumblers, and I've never really been a fan of that. I always like to do the work directly onto the cup. For some reason, that's just easier and works better for me. But if you want to layer your decal beforehand, there's nothing wrong with doing that either. So now we'll work our way back to the other side of the tumbler, and into this cute little frame I'm going to put this little vintage Santa head image. This is from Creative Fabrica, and I printed it out on my clear sticker vinyl paper, my favorite thing ever. And what I'm going to do though to make it like an opaque decal is put it over some plain white vinyl. So I brought this image into my Silhouette Studio, sized everything the way I wanted it, and then I duplicated the image and just cut that out of vinyl. So I printed one image and then cut the other shape out. So now I've got my plain white background basically, and I can just line up my printed image with the white vinyl, and now we've got an opaque decal. So once I've got that placed, I'm going to do a very like rough cut out of it, and then I'm going to place it right in the middle of that frame. After that, I finished off the bottom of the tumbler and then added my final coats of epoxy. So here is the final tumbler design. I am obsessed with how this turned out. I love every little bit of this cup, and I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it inspires you to create something so super Christmas festive and fun. If you enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my new videos. And of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another 12 Days of Christmas video, and I'll see you then. Okay, thanks so much for watching. See you very soon. Love you. Bye. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. I want to say a huge thank you to my channel subscribers, channel members, and a special thank you and shout out to my elite fam over on Patreon. You all make this channel possible, and I am so thankful for you. If you want to get in on the elite experience and get a little bit of extra content from me, you can join at patreon.com/elitefam. All right, here's another video for you to check out. I'll see you there. Love you. Bye.